Just as important as his artwork was to the world was the fact that he was a revolutionary scientist and thinker. His notebooks are filled with many a machine and ideas for practical applications. Though there is no proof that all of his inventions truly worked, his revolutionary ideas about anatomy, engineering, and science still give inspiration to those today seeking to make their mark in the world, as did Da Vinci. Leonardo had many thoughts about the workings of nature. He had many thoughts about the workings of machines. What we do know is that he put every thought into notebooks, which some still survive today. Leonardo was one of the first to combine mathematics and experimentation. You can see the algebra and geometry throughout the margins and pages of his notebooks. Although machines and waterways were built in antiquity, the understanding of how they work was not yet explored. Leonardo was quoted as saying, "No human investigation can be called true science without going through mathematical tests. The sciences which begin and end in the mind cannot be considered to contain truth, because such discourses lack experience, without which nothing reveals itself with certainty." Leonardo was a naturalist, and it consumed his thoughts with many an intrigue. He knew that force and motion are a part of all things. It could be used for good and for destruction. His study of that force led him into fluid dynamics. Leonardo expanded on the science of hydraulics and has been divided by certain fields within hydraulics, hydrostatics, and hydrodynamics. Leonardo's experiments in hydrostatics involved the pressure of air on water to understand how the weight of the fluid transmitted through that fluid. He established the mechanical behavior of fluids. The reason why he was interested in this is that there was a century-old idea to create a canal from Florence to the sea. This is a drawing of the proposed plan in green of where the canal would flow through. It even included a design to be able to route the water under or around the mountain pass at Serravalle near Pistoia with the pipe system. Creating this canal was a way to bring water to arid regions. He concerned himself with the amount of force that the water exerts on the atom, which is now considered hydrostatics. He also used water to find specific weights and densities of solids. With this information, he was able to theorize that fluids are bound by the same common volume, but the individual particles of that fluid seem to behave independently of each other, and yet to feel the impulses of other particles, both near and far. What he theorized was the original basis for chemistry of how particles move and interact with each other, as well as fluid dynamics. Nothing in the world fascinated Da Vinci more than water. His aforementioned notebooks were filled with waves, designs of structures to move water, and machines to travel over water. His inspiration of water led him to draw hair and flowers in the image of water. Leonardo compares man to earth and blood to water. As man has in him a pool of blood in which the lung rises and falls in breathing, so the body of the earth has its ocean's tide, which likewise rises and falls every 6 hours as if the world has breathed. In Leonardo's study of water, he touched on the basics of calculus by imagining a cylinder of water subdivided into smaller vertical elementary cylinders with the same diameter, which helped him calculate the force of the water on the opening in the bottom of the cylinder. The scientist who put Leonardo's ideas on paper for a better explanation happened around 1.5 centuries later. Galileo expanded inadvertently on Leonardo's theory of the energy of waterfalls. They both realized that the energy depended on the relationship between the velocity and height inside the container. Leonardo had everything but precise terminology of the basic theorem of hydrostatics, of which the scientist Bernoulli had developed. Nothing in the world fascinated Da Vinci more than water. In river, the water that you touch is the last of which comes. So with present time. In Leonardo's study of architecture, he used extensive algebra techniques to find weights on arches of buildings and walls on their foundations. Almost all of the arches constructed in the Renaissance collapsed, and no one, not even Leonardo, could figure out why. He observed that the posts of an arch bent outward and the beam bent inward, or downward, but he never made a quantitative analysis of it.
Leonardo da Vinci created masterpieces of art and sculpture. Equally remarkable, his aggregate achievements in engineering, mathematics, anatomy, geology, physics, music, military technology, aeronautics, and a wide range of other fields not only stood without peer in his own time, but were strikingly prescient for the distant future. He recorded his forward-looking ideas in thousands of notebook pages, known as codices. He produced one codex entirely on flight in 1505 and 1506, the Codex on the Flight of Birds. Among the many subjects Leonardo studied, the possibility of human mechanical flight held particular fascination. He produced more than 35,000 words and 500 sketches dealing with flying machines, the nature of air, and bird flight. Codex on the Flight of Birds explores aerodynamics, recognized the need for control, stated the importance of lightweight structures, and even hinted at the force Newton would later define as gravity. Leonardo outlined a number of observations and beginning concepts that would find a place in the development of a successful airplane in the early 20th century. Centuries before any real progress toward a practical flying machine was achieved, Leonardo expressed the seeds of the ideas that would lead humans to spreading their wings. This extraordinary document, exhibited outside Italy only a few times, will be displayed in the Wright Brothers and the Invention of the Aerial Age Gallery. The Codex exhibit will be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to appreciate the genius of Da Vinci in the same space as the Wright Flyer, which made the airplane a reality 4 centuries after Leonardo produced Codex on the Flight of Birds.
Throughout his notebooks, Leonardo draws detailed pictures of flight. There are pictures of a bird's wing and birds in flight. He was fascinated with the thought of flight and drew many machines that he thought would be capable of such a feat. Such drawings were a human-sized flight machine modeled off of a bat, and a tail feather to help with lift called an ornithopter. Others were the propeller, precursor to the helicopter, and surprising, a parachute as well. The great bird will take its first flight over the rise of the great swan, filling the universe with wonders, filling all writings with its fame, and bringing eternal glory to the nest where it was born. Fascinated by the art of flight, Leonardo da Vinci shared the dream of Icarus. He was convinced that a man could fly. He studied the flight of birds, flapping wings, and air resistance phenomena. He observed the shape of a bat's wing, which to him was more aerodynamical than the bird's. He tried to reproduce their mechanical movement, and he designed an extraordinary flying machine. He tested one at Monticelli, Mount of Swans, in Fiesole, Tuscany, unsuccessfully. Leonardo had the intuition of genius that prefigured the helicopter. His knowledge of aerodynamics was immense. The propeller combined the force of lift, the infinite movement of a screw, and the optimization of materials to be used. Moved by a fast rotation, the propeller was supposed to take off. In practice, no driving force at the time was able to do so. The motor would not be invented until several centuries later. Da Vinci imagined a quadrangular pyramid-shaped parachute built of wood and canvas. His idea was that the air collected inside the parachute during the descent should slow down the body fall, force of gravity, pulling the weight up. This would be achieved much later in 2000 by Adrian Nicholas, a British balloonist.